Hi, it's Tracy from Adventure Group Realty. I am just sitting here and answering some frequently asked questions. So one of the questions that we get is, what is an escrow deposit? So very similar to when you go to buy maybe a larger item where you put down a deposit. It can happen. I mean, I've seen it happen even at yard sales where you put down a deposit to say, I want this item, here's my deposit, and then we'll finish the sale later. So an escrow deposit is very similar. It is it's basically you, the buyer, saying, I want this house. The escrow deposit happens after a contract has been accepted by the seller. So the buyer makes an offer via a contract, and the seller then signs that, agrees to the terms of the contract and signs it. At that time, then you, the buyer, would need to make your escrow deposit. An escrow deposit is typically somewhere between $1,000 to $15,000, depending on the cost of the home and what type of loan is being used. So, typically somewhere between 1% and 2% of the sale price of the house is an acceptable amount. So this money will be used towards your down payment. It can be written into the contract that it would be converted towards closing costs too. So typically the escrow deposit is made in the form of a check or a wire transfer. The escrow deposit is held by a neutral third party. So it can be held, it could be held by the broker, either the buyer's broker or the seller's broker, but typically here in Central Florida, it's held by the title company that's going to be doing the closing. So the buyer, written within the contract, it will explain how many days that the buyer has in order to make that escrow deposit. The standard in this on the Florida contracts is 3 days, but that can be adjusted. But it is typically 3 days from the last signature or last initial on the contract. So, and typically your realtor will help you, the buyer, know and navigate how to make that deposit. So, it's typically done either through a wire transfer or a personal check made to the title company. And then whenever it's sent in, it's important to notify or to mention what property it's in reference to. And it's also important to get a receipt for that deposit. So another term you might hear is good faith deposit. So that is the same thing as an escrow deposit, or it's escrow deposit, earnest money deposit, EMD. Those are all interchangeable terms. So hopefully you find this helpful.